Stoic warrior. We live in a world where people constantly try to prove something. They prove they're right. They prove they're worthy. They over-explain. Sometimes even beg just to be recognized. But the Stoic does not beg for attention. The Stoic does not chase approval. A Stoic does not explain himself to the world, because he understands that silence is strength. Most people, when hurt, rejected, or misunderstood, rush to defend themselves. They chase. They explain to those who never intended to understand. That is weakness disguised as courage. You call someone and they don't answer. You text again. You write a long message pouring your heart out, hoping they'll see your worth. But the truth is, the more you explain and beg, the more power you lose. That is not Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus mastered the discipline of silence. It's not because they didn't care, but because they understood this. The more you value what lies beyond your control, the less control you truly have. Epictetus said it well: when you chase attention or beg for understanding, you hand away your power. True strength is walking away in silence when disrespected, not out of pride, but because your dignity doesn't need to shout. It doesn't chase. It doesn't explain. It withdraws quietly. That silence is not emptiness. It is discipline, self-respect, and inner strength declaring, I hear myself, even if you don't. And that silence unsettles people, because when you don't react, they lose the control they thought they had over you. Today, let's talk about the kind of silence that builds strength, not weakness. The silence that makes people wonder what changed. The silence where your absence speaks louder than words. We will explore 6 powerful truths, 6 reasons why silence is the Stoic's superpower, and why those who practice it never chase, never beg, never over-explain. If you are weary from giving too much, if you've been misunderstood, if you've ever chased someone who left you, this is your moment to change. Let this message be the reminder you never knew you needed. Before we begin the first truth, do me one favor: like this video if it already speaks to you. Share your thoughts and affirmations as you watch. Share this video with someone who needs it. And subscribe for more Stoic insights. Most importantly, don't skip any part. One truth may change the way you live forever. Leave this affirmation in the comments. My silence is my strength. First, silence makes others feel your absence instead of just hearing your words. Have you noticed this paradox? When you stop explaining and stop chasing, people suddenly start thinking. Silence doesn't push, it pulls. Remember the last time you were hurt? Maybe someone ignored you, disrespected you, or turned cold. Your instinct screamed, say something, defend yourself, prove your worth. But the truth is, the more you speak, the less they hear. The more you chase, the further they pull away. The more you explain, the less your words matter. But when you stay silent, they feel your absence more than they ever valued your presence. Those who can't understand your silence will never truly understand your words. Elbert Hubbard once said this. The Stoics knew it long ago. Silence unsettles people in ways noise never can. When you withdraw, instead of reacting, you force them to face their own actions. Silence is like a mirror. It says, I saw what you did. I felt how you treated me. But I respect myself enough not to explain. That silence doesn't come from ego. It comes from clarity. If they cared, they would ask. If they respected you, They would reach out. If they were emotionally mature, they wouldn't need a speech to see your value. So, you choose silence. And in that silence, you reclaim all the power you once gave away. You stop wasting energy trying to be understood by people who don't even understand themselves. You stop patching wounds with words. Because some wounds heal better in silence. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Your silence will provoke them. It will leave them unsettled. They will wonder, why isn't he reacting? Why isn't she responding? Have they stopped caring? That's the moment power shifts. Because silence speaks a truth. They can't ignore you. Owe them no explanation no longer. Second, silence sharpens your ability to hear the truth. The world is loud, but in silence, you begin listening not to others, but to yourself. In heartbreak, betrayal, or confusion, most people run to others for advice, validation, or temporary comfort. They call 5 friends, scroll endlessly through social media, or confront the one who hurt them, hoping the right conversation will fix the wrong person. But the Stoic does something very different. He chooses silence, not because he feels no pain, but because he knows real answers don't come from noise, but from reflection. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your judgment of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Marcus Aurelius. True silence calms the mind. And when the mind is calm, the truth rises. You begin to hear thoughts like, they never truly respected me, I just refused to see it. I'm not angry they left. I'm angry I stayed too long. I don't need closure. I need peace. These truths don't come through messages. They appear in the hours of silence, when you stop explaining and start listening. Silence creates the space to separate your emotions from your worth. When you're hurt, emotions scream. Chase them. Prove yourself. Explain your value. But in silence, your worth whispers. Protect your dignity. Guard your peace. Let go. That's why Stoic philosophers never made decisions in anger. They didn't rush to react. They embraced sacred stillness, a pause before the storm. Modern culture tells you the opposite. Speak your mind. Say how you feel. Don't let anyone disrespect you. But here's what most forget: respect isn't earned by shouting louder. Respect is earned by holding calm while others drown in noise. The quieter you become, the clearer others reveal themselves. You don't need to ask, do they care? Their actions will give the answer. You don't need to beg for clarity. The truth emerges in your stillness. And most importantly, you stop reacting by impulse and start responding with awareness. Silence is not weakness. It is focus, intention, and the gateway to inner wisdom. So when you feel lost, when emotions flood, you don't act in haste. Be still. The answer isn't outside of you. It's within, and you'll hear it in silence. Third, begging for closure is a form of self-betrayal. Let's face what many avoid: chasing closure often deepens the pain instead of bringing peace. We've all craved it. That last explanation, the honest talk, the ending that feels complete. But here's the hard truth: if someone truly cared, you wouldn't need to beg for closure. They would give it out of respect. If they don't, then your silence is the answer. Don't explain your philosophy. Live it. Epictetus. This may sound unrelated, but here's how it applies when you stop chasing closure and start living by your values. You no longer need others to validate your pain. The pain is real, yes, but needing them to explain why they hurt you is handing them control over your healing. Here's the cycle first. They wound you. Second, you demand answers. Third, they respond with coldness or avoidance. Fourth, you feel worse. And the cycle repeats until you realize closure doesn't come from them. It comes when you choose silence and walk away. It's easy to convince yourself, if I just tell them how I feel, if I explain my perspective, if I have that one last conversation. But the reality is, you're talking to someone who already accepted hurting you. You're explaining to someone who decided long ago. You're wasting energy hoping they'll fix the expectations they shattered. That's not closure, it's abandoning yourself. The Stoics understood emotions blur judgment, especially when pride interferes. You want to be seen as good. You want to be understood. You want them to finally get it. But chasing that betrays your own growth. True closure is realizing what they gave is all they were ever capable of giving. You accept that no explanation will make them more respectful, more loving, or more honest. You stop waiting for a conversation that will never come. In that acceptance, your power returns. The one who hurt you doesn't need to understand your worth. The one who does is you. The one who left doesn't need to say goodbye. You can say it without words. The one who vanished doesn't need a second chance. Your silence is their answer. So stop writing letters you'll never send. Stop rehearsing the perfect speech. Stop seeking closure from people who were never open. Be silent. Let that silence be the space where your self-respect breathes again. Fourth, silence exposes what words try to hide. When you are silent, something powerful happens. Masks fall. Words can be beautiful, but they can also be deceitful. People say what sounds right, what they think you want to hear. They use explanations, excuses, apologies, but silence cannot lie. What you do speaks so loudly. I cannot hear what you say. Ralph Waldo Emerson. The Stoics lived by this truth. They didn't judge people by apologies, but by patterns. And the best way to see those patterns is to stop talking and observe. Silence isn't passivity, it's refined observation. When you stop explaining yourself, you allow others to reveal who they really are. Trust me, they will. Those who truly respect you will remember your presence and reach out with sincerity. Those who only used you will disappear, because they never valued you in the first place. Those who tried to control you will become angry or confused, not because you did something wrong, but because they lost control. Most people never notice this. Words can create illusions, but silence reveals the truth. You don't need confrontation. You don't need to test them. Withdraw and watch. See who shows up when you're silent. See who fades away when you stop giving. Watch who grows furious when they can no longer provoke a reaction from you. That's the truth, harsh, but necessary. Sometimes silence cuts deeper than 1,000 arguments, because people can deny your words, but they cannot deny your absence. They can debate your opinions, but they cannot argue with your silence. By staying silent, you stop feeding their illusions. You stop playing their emotional games. You stop pretending that their words outweigh their actions. That silence brings you clarity. You no longer need them to explain why they mistreated you. Their silence, their distance, their actions already say it all. You begin to trust patterns more than promises. You trust energy more than excuses. You value reality over empty words. That is the Stoic way. It isn't cold, it's clarity. It isn't indifferent, it's awareness. It isn't heartless, it's emotional control. Next time someone tries to talk their way back into your life, don't answer right away. Observe, be silent, and let the truth speak without words. Fifth, refusing to explain yourself is the highest form of confidence. Let's be honest, when someone misunderstands you, it hurts. You want to defend yourself. You want to explain. That's not who I am. But the Stoic doesn't chase understanding from others. He seeks understanding within himself. Why? Because explaining yourself to those who already judged you isn't confidence, it's fear of being misjudged. Do not waste the rest of your life wondering about others, unless it is for the common good. Marcus Aurelius. Reflect on that. Each time you try to convince someone of your worth, your goodness, or your loyalty, you're giving away your most valuable time and energy to their judgment. That is not strength, it is insecurity. The man who doesn't explain is not arrogant. He is calm. Knowing his intentions are clear, his actions are consistent. His values don't need explanation to those unwilling to see them. This level of detachment isn't easy. You will be called cold. You will be labeled selfish. You may lose people who were once close. But remember, losing those who never truly understood you is not a loss. It is alignment. Here's the truth. Few admit. Most people don't want to understand you. They only want to control how others perceive you. And when your silence shatters that illusion, they grow angry. Not because you hurt them, but because you stopped playing their game. When you stop explaining, you start leading with energy, not excuses. You don't need to explain why you withdraw. You don't need to defend your peace. You simply act, and those who truly belong in your life will understand your silence without subtitles. This kind of energy is rare. It unsettles manipulators, drives off users, but earns profound respect from those who stay, because they see you never lower your worth to fit someone else's misunderstanding. This is the silence of dignity. Not loud, not disparity, not false, but calm, steady, unshakable. You owe no one an explanation for choosing peace. You don't need to convince anyone your boundaries are valid. You don't need to speak your worth where silence has already spoken for you. Sixth, letting go in silence is the lesson they most need. There's a unique strength in quietly walking away, not in anger, not in drama, but in calm release. You don't slam doors. You don't send one last emotional message. You simply leave. And in that silence, you teach a lesson words never could. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Seneca. That quote reminds us, the real pain begins when the mind replays the silence. When you stop responding, they are left with their own thoughts, their own guilt, their own memories of how they treated you, and the echo of your absence. Your silence says, I no longer need to prove myself to you. I will not remain where I'm not respected. I've learned that peace is worth more than the relationship. Most people don't know how to handle this energy. They're used to those who react, beg, fight for closure, or collapse just to be heard. But when you choose silence, you stop playing that emotional game. You leave with dignity, and your silence forces them to face themselves. They expected you to chase. They expected you to fight, to stay, to return. But you didn't. And that unsettles them more than any argument, because suddenly they realize they no longer control your energy. They lose their advantage. They never expected you would truly walk away. That's when the lesson begins. People don't learn from your words. They learn from distance. They don't change because you yell, "Respect me." They might change when your absence shows them what they lost. And if they don't, that's fine too, because the lesson isn't for them, it's for you. You learn that peace doesn't need permission. You realize not everyone deserves an explanation. And sometimes silence isn't just strength, it's healing. In silence, you free yourself from toxic cycles. You stop bleeding in front of those incapable of understanding your pain. You stop explaining storms to those who've only ever lived indoors. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care too much about your soul to keep it in abandoned spaces. That's why the Stoics didn't rush to react. They didn't chase justice. They didn't beg for validation. They let silence speak for them. You don't need to shout, "I'm done." You simply walk away. That is real strength. And it's the kind of silence that terrifies those who thought they had control. So don't fear detachment. Be silent, and let them sit in the space where your voice once was. If you've made it this far, you can already feel it. Something inside you is shifting. A quiet realization, a truth you've always known but may have forgotten along the way. You don't need to chase, to beg, or to explain yourself, to be worthy. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You don't need to prove your point just to be understood. You don't need to trade your peace to make others comfortable. That is the foundation of Stoicism. Not coldness, but clarity. Not detachment from love, but detachment from chaos. The Stoics taught something powerful. Silence is not weakness. It is mastery. It is refusing to waste energy on what is beneath you. It is confidence. Knowing your presence has value even in your absence. There will always be moments when emotions surge, when you feel the urge to explain, to argue, to prove. But in those moments, remember this: your silence may not win the debate, but it will return you to yourself. Because every time you choose not to react, you build inner peace. Every time you quietly walk away, you build self-worth. Every time you hold your dignity, you build strength that cannot be stolen. And if there's one thing to carry from this message, it's this: let silence be your final word. Not out of pride, not out of resentment, but from deep, unshakable self-respect. Thank you for watching. If this video spoke to your heart, like it now. Share it with someone ready to grow. Comment your affirmations below. Your voice matters here. And subscribe for more Stoic truths each week. Leave this final affirmation in the comments. My silence is my last word, and my greatest strength